Hello you bearded bastards, and welcome to part 2 of my Forgotten Beasts little short fortress gallery thing. Now pretty much the same as that last part, no actual Dwarf Fortress gameplay to be seen here, just going to be going through looking at some Forgotten Beast descriptions and drawing some pictures. A little bit of rambling here and there, you know. And so let's get right back into it. Now I'm recording this intro after I've already recorded this entire episode, so let's see if we could just slide back into it right here. Let's see what's next. Next up we have Uthimi Okwari Nidella. That's a nice, gentle sounding name, I would say. Uthimi, the Nightmare of Dusk, was a forgotten beast. Nightmares of Dusk does not sound gentle at all. A huge lemur with lidless eyes. It has thin wings of stretched skin, and it appears to be emaciated. Its eyes glow yellow. Its dark brown hair is short and even. Beware its webs. Okay, now this one here is another one that I colored. I went with a different technique on this one. Just for the hell of it, I used markers. And I'm not talking like some fancy artsy markers either. I'm talking like Crayola washable markers for preschoolers, that sort of stuff. I just wanted to see how it looked afterwards. And I suppose the results are fairly okay, but I can't imagine myself doing that again, honestly. Now, the beast itself, man, that is a terrifying looking thing, huh? Imagine this guy swooping through the caverns, spraying webs all over the place, screeching, babbling, its enormous, lidless, glowing yellow eyes following dwarves wherever they might try to hide. Yeah, that's a bad one. But really not so much different than that possum we saw earlier. I imagine they're fairly similar in game. They both can fly, both mammalian. Any of those flying forgotten beasts tend to be a giant pain in the ass. They can get anywhere, which really screws things up. Guys, make sure your forts are nice and safe. Close up those ceilings. Okay, I care about you. Next up we have Osman Slekiquab Sedast. Slekiquab. It sounds like one of the boring 3rd generation Pokemon you forgot about. Oh right, I remember drawing this one. Guys, this one here is one of my favorites. Osman, the lustful bloat of moistening, was a forgotten beast. Let me just start out by saying that name is one of the best ones on this list today. It was the only one of its kind, thankfully. A towering, skinless, 6-legged salamander. It has a bloated body. Its eyes glow red. Beware its fire. Yet another fire-breathing monster that is associated with water. Now then, would you look at this beautiful boy here? Now, I just want you to take a second and just take it all in. This beautiful creature, Osman, just sitting at the edge of this lava lake here, staring blankly into space. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, usually I don't take the whole bloated body thing this far, but I don't know, I just got a kind of a funny mental image and followed it through. And here we are. I'd say it worked out fairly okay. Interesting side note, if you've ever been playing a fantasy game and saw a salamander, and it was some sort of a creature that was associated with fire, like I know there's a creature like that in Dungeons and Dragons and several other games I've played over the years, Dungeon Keeper. Well, that's because people in the olden days used to think that salamanders came from fire. I'm probably grossly oversimplifying this. Now the idea was when people threw logs into the fire, salamanders would just appear in the fire. And so of course the fire just gave birth to salamanders, right? To the medieval mind it made sense, I'm sure. But the salamanders were actually living inside the rotting wood of these logs here, and were trying to escape before they burned alive. I mean, that's a thought anyways. I haven't looked too far into it, but you know, I guess it kinda makes sense, right? That someone would think that back in the olden days. And that's part of why I thought this creature was so perfect, just because it is a salamander that breathes fire with red eyes. I really like how this came out. Both Mrs. Kruggsmash and I worked on this picture here, just as a side note. Teamwork. It really works out. But that's enough of this fat ass. Next beastie. Next up we have Uspsast Uspsast the Soakedcrush. Uspsast the Soakedcrush was a forgotten beast, the only one of its kind. A gigantic eyeless crab. It has lacy wings and it appears to be emaciated. Its pale blue exoskeleton is waxy. Beware its poisonous bite. Uspsast was associated with water, nightmares, and caverns. Now then, Uspsast is the second crab to appear on our list today, which is great actually. It was really fun to make 2 different crabs that looked so vastly different from one another. This one's emaciated, has no eyes, lacy wings, so this thing can fly. Very creepy, I'd say. Just picture it flitting very quietly through the caverns. Just echoing. Maybe you think it's water at a distance, but then this towering beast kind of hovers out of the darkness. You can't even tell what it is first. These tiny little legs here, just kind of tapping around the cavern floor. Yeah, another creepy beast. I find that the more bug-like beasts tend to be my favorites to work on. Arthropods in general, really. Crabs, arachnids, insects. They tend to have such a variety in the way they can look. You can take a lot of liberty with that. Less so when you have something like a lemur or a possum. There really isn't that many variations. Crabby. Next monster. Next up we have Meli. which is what, that's like a nickname for someone named Melissa, right? Here we have Melissa, an enormous blob composed of salt. It has a round shell and a bloated body. Melissa was associated with theft and caverns. Now, this is the first blob that's appeared on the list. Normally, I don't really care to draw blobs. I mean, it's a blob. How much can you do with it, really? So I did take a little bit of liberty with this one. I mean, it's a formless blob, but maybe this one kind of formed its top half into this roughly skeletal shape with like a little skull on top. It is white, you know, salt, so kind of like bone. Yeah, what the hell, right, huh? A big salty shell that it can kind of withdraw into for safety. Its little skull face peeking out. I thought that'd be kind of cute. You tend to imagine blobs as not being very intelligent, more like some sort of an algae or a fungus, something along those lines. But if Melissa is associated with theft, then there must be some sort of intelligence in there, right? Maybe it's stolen something in the past. What would a blob have stolen? Some sort of a shiny trinket, perhaps? Where did it store this trinket? Perhaps it's lodged somewhere in its salty body, or perhaps in its shell somewhere? Could be. Who's to say? I suppose you'd have to slay Melissa to find out. But I'd say that's enough of Meli. A very boring monster. Next up we have Uzod Uzod, the Arrow of Denting. Uzod, the Arrow of Denting, was a forgotten beast, the only one of its kind. An enormous humanoid composed of aquamarine. It has 3 narrow tails and it has a bloated body. Beware its poisonous vapors. Uzod was associated with chaos and caverns. You know, I would swear I've learned more about the world we live in from Dwarf Fortress than any other game. Aquamarine, what is that? Just like some blue stone, right? And then you look it up online and see a natural aquamarine crystal formation, and it's really amazing. Again, look that up, guys. It's crazy how crystals form sometimes, and I kind of use that shape in this creature here. You can see Uzod has this poison gas billowing out of him. From where, I'm not too sure. Perhaps it comes from his undercarriage, who's to say? Now, Uzod is associated with chaos and caverns. Chaos. That's an interesting one. It makes me think more of this creature as a completely mindless brute, just slamming its way through the caverns, causing earthquakes. Fortresses miles away tend to start crumbling whenever Uzod is near. I threw this little dwarf on this ledge here. Perhaps this dwarf is attempting to offer a sacrifice to Uzod, the great chaotic master. I can't imagine that's going to work out very well. Being a creature of chaos, I'm sure Uzod smashes this dwarf into a fine paste just moments after this picture takes place. But who really knows? Maybe it does work out. Maybe Uzod does accept this gift. Not likely. Not likely at all, but it's fun to think about. Next up we have Utesh. A simple name. Utesh was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. An enormous 3-eyed badger. It has a knobby shell and it squirms and fidgets. Its slate gray hair is unkempt. Beware its poisonous bite. Utesh was associated with water, death, and caverns. I'm only just now noticing how many of these forgotten beasts are associated with water. Sure, there's a ton of water found underground in Dwarf Fortress, but I didn't realize how many of these creatures are associated directly with it. Plus, I mean, Utesh isn't really an aquatic creature, and on top of that, I tend to think of water as being kind of cool, refreshing. Utesh looks like he's about to bite anybody's face directly off their head. I can certainly picture it anyways. Now, it does say that Utesh has a poisonous bite, but I'm thinking that if Utesh bites you, then the poison's gonna be the least of your concern. Because if these jaws close on you, I mean, you're gonna be dead, pretty much. I would think anyways. Yeah, that is an awful looking forgotten beast. Certainly not one I'd care to encounter anyways. The claws, the teeth, these eyes. Interesting Google note. You know, I picture Utesh being very fast, more like a wolf or something like that. Which, you know, when you have a creature that is the size of a house, that prospect is definitely terrifying. Crashing through the caves, maybe some sort of a barking sound. I don't know, do badgers make a sound? Again, something I could have looked up, but here we are. Echoing through the caves, picks a dwarf up, gives it a good shake, moves on to the next. Yikes, huh? Again, extremely excited to start that new season. Let's move on. Next up we have Camellia Iaphemetha. Camellia, the Unbridled Play. Oh, that's a nice name, Unbridled Play. Like you're having some hardcore fun right there. It was the only one of its kind. A huge, feathered tarantula. It has wings and it has a bloated body. Its cerulean feathers are fluffed out. Beware its poisonous bite. Camellia was associated with chaos and caverns. Alright, and there you see it. Now, this creature here, I have no big problem with spiders. In fact, I owned a tarantula just until a couple months ago when it passed away. But you know, I figured what kind of wings would a tarantula have? And the hindquarters of a beetle seem to kind of fit on that back half fairly well. And so that's what I did. And this resulting creature looks disturbingly likely. Like something like this could exist out there somewhere. And the thought of a flying tarantula, let alone a gigantic flying tarantula, is really nightmarish. But on the upside of that, it does have a nice blue color to it. It's kind of pretty. I have owned several horrible animals over the years. A tarantula, which was a salmon pink bird-eating tarantula. I've also owned a centipede, Vietnamese giant centipede, as well as an emperor scorpion. They are fun to look at, take care of, and that sort of stuff. I don't take them out of their cages. I think of them more like fish. But it is good to have a chance to observe these creatures, how they move, walk around, that sort of stuff. But I would say those years are behind me these days, especially seeing as how these days I'm currently the owner of a mean little bird, a bearded dragon, 2 dogs, and 6 squirrels. It's a long story, don't worry about it. The next forgotten beast, please. Okay, next up we have Ezuk Inrus, the Raunch of Poison, which actually ended up being one of my favorites. Let's have a look. The Raunch of Poison was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. A great feathered butterfly. It has a fat, bulging trunk, and it is ravening. Its eyes glow spring green. Its emerald feathers are long and broad. Beware its poisonous vapors. The Raunch was associated with depravity and caverns. I like how it's referred to as the Raunch. It makes it seem more of a boogeyman type of creature. Like, don't go out into the caves, Urist, or else the Raunch will gobble you up. And I had actually insisted on coloring this one here. Has its fat, bulging trunk, reaching to the underside of this mushroom here, getting some of the sweet, sweet fungus nectar from underneath. That's how mushrooms work, right? I'm pretty sure. Now, as I said before, I don't like to take too much liberty with these forgotten beast descriptions, but I know in the game, the Raunch has legs. Like a butterfly has legs. But it doesn't say anything about them being humanoid legs. So that's what I did. Kind of like some weird golem sort of a creature sitting here on top of this mushroom cap. Got these big old wings here, a couple of eye spots, which is interesting if you think about it. Why would it need eye spots? To scare off predators? The Raunch itself is an enormous creature. What would it be scaring off? Makes you wonder. Kind of terrifying, really. Imagine walking through a mushroom grove deep down under the earth, and the Raunch silently flits out of the darkness, swooping gracefully, erratically. It bears down on you. The next thing you know, a couple of pale green humanoid hands are wrapped around your torso, bringing you up farther into the cave. And the next thing you know, you're being stuffed into a fat bulging trunk. Yeah, that would suck. But again, note that none of these forgotten beasts have encountered any dwarves or anything besides that one so far. They're all just down there, waiting. One day. Next, we have Omma Miyu Faruyaba, Omma cyst lobsters. Alright, now we just went from the Raunch, which is one of my favorites from this episode, to this one here, Omma. A towering humanoid composed of salt. It has wings and a bloated body. That's actually it right there. A bloated, salty dude with wings. That's it. I mean, fairly simple, really, I guess. I tried to look up some salt crystal ideas online, and I did see a bunch of fairly standard looking salt crystals, but I also did see like these bunches of, looked like kind of a drippy formations, and so that's what this guy is right here. Lord knows how this weight stays up in the air, but it works somehow. Kind of creepy if you think about it, like this creature's going through a cave, and again, maybe it's completely silent, except for the salt crystals that constantly fall from its body. So perhaps you hear a distant rhythmic rush of its wings, as well as a slight hissing sound, the thousands of salt crystals dropping from its body every moment, like a coming rainstorm perhaps. That would be pretty terrifying. And I mean, really when you get down to it, this creature's face is fairly nightmarish, I guess. I hadn't intended for it to look like a dwarf, but that's what it ended up looking like, just because I figured its head was dripping down like that. Yeah, I guess it turned out okay. If I saw this thing floating through the caves, I wouldn't be a happy camper. I would be terrified. Definitely. So yeah, I guess it worked after all. Anywho, let's see what we have next. And next up we have Ricoto Succacirono, Ricoto the Littlesprays. Let's have a look. Alright, it looks like we do have another forgotten beast with some events in their past. It's interesting. Ricoto the Littlesprays was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. A towering, scaly buffalo twisted into humanoid form. It has a bloated body. Its purple taupe scales are jagged and overlapping. Beware its poisonous bite. Ricoto was associated with water, thralldom, and caverns. Now let's see here. In the early spring of 100, well, it looks like he devoured 2 humans and a horse. So, we've been through nearly 30 forgotten beasts so far, and the only people to have been killed from these creatures are 2 humans, a dwarf, a dog, and a horse. Kinda stunning, really. Bunch of lazy forgotten beasts when you get down to it. But anyways, let's take a look at this creature here. Now, I was really excited to draw this creature, and I'd say it came out fairly well. Mrs. Kruggsmash colored this one, and I really like the way she shaded everything. His little purple lip, the darker colored shell back here, his dark horns and hooves. It seems like it would fit in a fairly cartoony fantasy setting fairly well, stomping through the caverns, devouring whatever it finds, I guess. I did draw this little dwarven fortress over here. Perhaps this is moments before I devoured those two people and the horse. Oh, you know, actually, I'm taking a look here. The two people that I killed were both 1 year old, so they were just babies. Wow, that's pretty dark. Perhaps it was some sort of a bizarre sacrifice to this beast. Who could say, really? And yet we have another creature with a poisonous bite I'm not so sure I'd be concerned about. Because again, if you got bit by this creature, you'd be completely just dead, I think. I suppose if you were lucky enough to survive a bite from this creature, then, you know, the poison would probably finish you off. I imagine that poison would be most handy against another forgotten beast. Is there a way to make these things fight? I don't think they typically fight each other, although I do remember instances of forgotten beasts in caverns kind of passing by each other and taking a swing. There was one time I had a forgotten beast that came back as a zombie and then fought with another living forgotten beast. That was pretty epic. But yeah, I'm fairly certain they just ignore each other for the most part. Kind of a shame. Anywho, let's move on. Next we have Gulgun the Littlesprays. Ooh, that's a fun one to say. Gulgun. That is a great forgotten beast name right there. Gulgun the Littlesprays. Gulgun, the Deep Gutter. Ooh yeah, big fan. Gulgun the Deep Gutter was a forgotten beast, the only one of its kind. An enormous one-eyed mite. It has lacy wings and it undulates rhythmically. Its eye glows scarlet. Its aqua exoskeleton is wrinkled. Beware its noxious secretions. Gulgun was associated with disease and caverns. And here we have the creature, kind of a comical looking beast in my opinion, but I really like the way it came out. Big old fat thing, couple little hairs coming out of its head, and I decided to go with a rather feminine looking eye with some eyelashes out there, as well as a couple of little humanoid arms. Now imagine if this creature just landed in front of you, and then kind of clacked over to you with its big insectoid legs, and then just reached out with its two pale blue arms, touching, probing your face, while looking at you with its enormous scarlet eye. I'm not too sure what it would do after that, honestly. And really, I don't want to think about it. You can see I put some noxious secretions coming out from its backside here, kind of blocked up by this wing, thankfully. Again, I'm not 100% sure what these noxious secretions do, but I'm sure I'll find out at some point. Fun. Goodbye, beautiful. Next up, we have Ramstom. A simple name. I like it. Ramstom was a forgotten beast, the only one of its kind. An enormous one-eyed ankylosaurid. It has thin wings of stretched skin and it squirms and fidgets. Its pale pink scales are small and overlapping. Beware its poisonous gas. Now here's an interesting one. I wasn't particularly excited to draw this beast, but I'd say it came out rather well. I've kind of did it a little bit more distant than those previous ones just because I wanted to show its entire wings. A little bit of a pattern on there. Really, I think it's neat just because it looks like a dragon, a variation of a traditional dragon anyways, and I find that kind of appealing. It does have poisonous gas, which I chose to have coming out of its nostrils. Just picture this creature lazily flying over a fortress under the earth, blanketing the area with this poisonous gas. It becomes thick. You can't see the other dwarves. Everyone gets separated, lost in choking clouds of poison gas. Not sure which way to go. What is that, the fortress? You approach and see the creature. It turns to gaze at you with its one eye. Also, it has this tail down here, like a giant swinging club. Imagine what that would do to a fortress. Well, nothing in the game, I know that, but I don't know, just picture it. Wouldn't that be sweet? Giant armored dragon creature kind of lumbering up to a fortress and smashing the walls apart with its tail. Gas pouring from its nostrils. I like it. Next we have Ugosh Setnek. Alright, I can dig it. Alright, this was that one. I insisted on coloring this one. Ugosh, the Spittle of Buzzards, was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. A huge quadruped composed of grime and filth. It has 4 short horns and it undulates rhythmically. Beware its poisonous gas. Ugosh was associated with water, caverns, and blight. And here he is. Grime and filth. Now, what is grime and filth? Let's ask ourselves. Well, I know there can be creatures that are composed solely of vomit, so I don't think grime and filth is vomit, nor is it dirt, I wouldn't think anyways, or else it would specify as much. And so I'm thinking, this might just be me, that grime and filth is really just a polite way of saying poo-poo. So essentially what we have here is an enormous creature made of poo-poo, and there he is, in full glory. Currently taking a rest, perhaps? Oh god, he's all pooped out. Oh Jesus, I'm sorry. Oh my, I'm so sorry. Anyways, yeah, imagine the smell in here, huh? That's gotta be something. Got some little poops dripping off the wall back there. A couple little turds laying about this area. And yet, with all this poop here, You wouldn't think I could possibly find this creature cute at all, but I don't know, something about it. He's got those little eyes and that big old head. Mrs. Kruggsmash was saying that this creature looks a lot like, anyone remember that show, Maggie and the Ferocious Beast? It went on TV when I was little. She says that this looks an awful lot like the beast, and I guess I have to agree. Another thing for you guys to Google, I guess. Let's move on. Next up, we have Nethitha Rofalausi. That's an interesting name. Let's have a look. Nethitha. Doesn't sound right. Nethitha, the fatal Moistness, was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. An enormous hairy gecko. It has a long spiral horn and it is slavering. Its teal hair is long and shaggy. Beware its deadly blood. Kind of a creepy looking beast here. A gecko with shaggy teal hair and a single spiral horn. Now picture this here. A shaggy gecko pattering around the caves. It can easily just go straight up a cavern wall, be hanging upside down somewhere. Wouldn't that be cool? Its hair hanging down looks like a cluster of stalactites perhaps, and it just watches with its enormous eyes. It senses prey, comes down the wall, and charges, rearing up on its back legs, mouth agape, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth. Do you get that mental image? Are you getting that? Because I'm picturing something beautiful right now. You know, actually going through and talking about these beasts gives me so much of a clearer image of each of them. I hadn't had half these ideas about these creatures when I was drawing them. It's really kind of a shame, honestly. I decided to put this horn up at the front of its head instead of coming out the top, which was my first instinct. I instead went with the narwhal configuration. I imagine it could skewer an armored dwarf pretty easy with its horn out the front like that, where if it was coming out the top, it would have to put its head down and, you know, it's already so close to the ground. I don't think it would work out so well. But yeah, that's Nethitha. And we only have one more forgotten beast left today. Let's see what it is. Dungda. Dungda was a forgotten beast. It was the only one of its kind. A towering humanoid composed of green glass. It has wings and it squirms and fidgets. Beware its deadly dust. Dungda was associated with caverns and blight. Now this is the only forgotten beast on the list that I decided to make coming through the cavern like this, kind of like an action pose I suppose, and I'd say it worked out fairly well. I don't generally like doing this because you can't see the creature in its entirety, which really bothers me, but it is nice to see the creature in such an epic pose like that, I guess. Now this poor dwarf down here, I do not envy him at all. Just imagine this situation, chased into this narrow cave here, Dungda close on his heels. Do you think Dungda makes a noise? Some sort of a hooting sound perhaps? A low whistle that ushers out from his broken glass mouth? Now it says that Dungda has a deadly dust. I'm pretty sure this is the first creature on the list with a deadly dust. And in Dwarf Fortress that means it has just clouds of dust that billow out from it at all times, which again can have any number of random effects. But I like to picture Dungda's deadly dust being tiny microscopic particles of green glass. Breathe in some of that, oh man, you're gonna be hurting, I'm telling you. That's not gonna work out well for you. Oh, maybe that's how it works. Maybe it makes this whistling low sound and just blows out clouds of this dusty green glass. That'd be awful, huh? Yikes, no thanks. Good luck, dwarf. You're gonna need it, I think. Well, and I guess that's gonna about do it today. Now take a look here. The rest of this page here filled with forgotten beasts. Another page right here, as well as another, and another, and another. And it just keeps going. Each Dwarf Fortress world is filled with a ton of these beasts. Each with their own stories, each with their own possibilities. It really gets that imagination going, I gotta say. And well, I suppose it's gonna about do it for today, guys. Again, I truly hope you enjoyed watching this episode. If you'd like to see another of these at some point, please tell me below. And if you really hated this episode, again, tell me below, as well as a reason. That'd be totally dope, because it would help me improve myself. Oh, and here's a little something to get the comments stirred up. Which of these forgotten beasts do you think is the strongest? Let's get some discussion on that. I'm very curious to see what you think. A special thanks to the musicians who helped with this episode, Chris WK210 who did my intro, as well as Elk Bird. Again, check him out on Bandcamp. And a very special thanks to all my patrons. Without you guys, I would not have hope, and I could never thank you enough. But the most special thanks goes to Mrs. K, my beautiful wife, who colors my pictures like she colors my life. And last but certainly not least, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, you bearded bastards.